Welcome back to the home of British politics, where we take a hard look at the stories shaping this country and ask the questions too many in Westminster would rather avoid. I'm Jack. Tonight we're talking about something that should matter to every family, every business, and every household in Britain. Are we drifting towards an energy crisis in plain sight? Because while ministers talk endlessly about targets, transitions, and long-term plans, a very different message is coming from those who understand just how vulnerable our electricity system may be becoming. Catherine Porter has warned of the growing risk of blackouts, rationing, and an electricity network that may be far less secure than the public has been told. And the truth is simple. When the lights go out, the slogans mean nothing. You cannot heat your home with political spin. You cannot power the country with wishful thinking. So tonight, we're asking the question directly. Are we building an energy system that is genuinely reliable, or one that only sounds impressive on paper?
And I'm Olivia.
And today, a question that should worry every family, every business, every pensioner, every single person in this country. Is Britain being marched towards an energy blackout?
Because this is no longer some fringe concern. Catherine Porter has been sounding the alarm, and the warning is brutally simple. Our electricity system is becoming more fragile, more stretched, and more vulnerable.
And yet the political class carries on as if everything's absolutely marvellous.
That's the maddening bit, isn't it? Ministers speak as though sticking up another wind farm press release is the same as guaranteeing the lights stay on.
It isn't.
No.
Not even close.
Because electricity is not a theory. It's not a slogan. It's not an aspiration. It either works when people need it or it doesn't.
Exactly. And the public is constantly being sold this fantasy that because Britain has more renewable power, that automatically means Britain has more secure power.
Which is just not the same thing.
No, and this is where the whole debate has been corrupted. We've replaced honest engineering with political theatre.
That's a strong start.
It's true though.
It is true, because if you strip all the waffle away, the real question is painfully basic. When it's freezing cold, dark outside, everyone's home from work, the ovens are on, the telly's on, the heating's on, where is the power coming from?
And if the answer is, well, hopefully the wind will be blowing, that is not an energy strategy. That is crossing your fingers
and hoping the weather signs off on government policy.
Exactly right.
Now, let's be fair, because fairness matters. The official voices will tell you there is no need to panic. They'll say margins are manageable. They'll say the system operator has tools. They'll say Britain has backup arrangements. They'll say Britain is secure.
And the trouble is, that sort of language sounds reassuring until you listen carefully. Go on, because what they're really saying is, don't worry, we can just about manage this increasingly awkward balancing act.
Yes.
And that's not the same as having a strong, robust, comfortable buffer.
No, it means we're juggling.
Exactly. More imports, more emergency balancing, more last-minute adjustments, more dependence on people using power at the right times, more strain, more complexity, more things that can go wrong.
And complexity is fine until something snaps.
That's it. Modern Britain keeps building systems that only work beautifully when absolutely everything goes to plan.
Which is not a great philosophy for national infrastructure.
It's mad, completely mad, because serious countries build resilience, they build spare capacity, they build backup, they build systems that can absorb shocks.
Whereas Britain seems to build systems that need a motivational speech and mild weather.
That's outstanding.
Thank you.
And this is why Catherine Porter's warning lands, because she cuts through all the political fluff and says, hang on a second, this system is getting tighter, not looser.
More brittle.
Yes.
More weather-dependent.
Yes.
And more exposed to the sort of shock that a few years ago would have been far less dangerous.
That's the key point. It's not that every day is a crisis, it's that the margin for error is being squeezed.
And when the margin for error shrinks, small failures become big failures.
That is exactly how blackouts happen, not necessarily because one single giant thing explodes, but because the system runs too tight too often, and then one bad moment tips it over.
A calm day, a cold snap, an interconnector issue, a plant outage, a forecasting miss, a sudden spike in demand. It doesn't take a Hollywood disaster.
No, just bad timing.
And that's what makes all this so serious. Britain has become weirdly casual about energy security.
Because too many politicians think energy is about optics.
And headlines.
And conference applause.
And green virtue signalling.
Well, the grown-up question is, can the grid cope?
And if it can cope today, will it still cope tomorrow under more pressure?
Exactly, because demand is not going down, is it?
No, we are told more and more of life must be electrified. Heating electrified, transport electrified, industry increasingly electrified. Fine, that may be the policy direction, but if that's the direction, then the pressure on the power system only grows.
And yet at the same time, we're told not to worry about losing dependable power sources because somehow smart management will sort it all out.
That phrase, smart management.
I know.
It's become the magic wand phrase, as if software can replace physical reality.
Exactly. An app is not a power station.
A ministerial target is not a backup generator.
And a speech about clean power does not keep the freezer on in a cold snap.
No, and this is where the public starts to get angry because they can sense when they're being spun.
Yes, they may not know every technical detail, but they know when the story doesn't quite add up.
They know that if the country is being asked to depend more and more on electricity, then that electricity had better be rock solid.
And expensive fragility is the worst of both worlds.
That's another part of this, by the way. It's not just about whether the lights stay on, it's about what households are being asked to pay while all this is going on.
Quite right.
Because people look at their bills and think, hang on, we were promised all this would lead to something better, cheaper, cleaner, more secure, and yet the public experience often feels like pay more, worry more, and ask fewer questions.
That is the political bargain that's starting to crack, because people will tolerate a lot if they feel a system is genuinely making life better, but they won't tolerate being lectured while they're also being squeezed.
And they definitely won't tolerate blackouts.
No, because that's the point where all the slogans die.
Instantly.
Nobody sitting in the dark says, well, at least the pathway ambition was world-leading.
Nobody freezing at home says, yes, but the rhetoric was excellent.
Exactly. People want the basics: heat, light, reliability. And they want those basics before they get another sermon.
And perhaps this is what's so refreshing, if that's the word, about Catherine Porter's intervention. Whether people agree with every detail or not, at least she is dragging the conversation back to physical reality.
Yes, back to engineering, back to margins, back to security, back to what keeps a grid stable.
Because stability is not glamorous.
No.
It doesn't trend on social media.
No.
But you certainly notice when it disappears.
That is beautifully put.
Don't you?
And this is where I think the political class has made a grave mistake. They have framed skepticism about the current energy path as though it must come from cranks, deniers, or people who simply hate change.
When, in fact, a lot of skepticism comes from asking the most normal question in the world: is this system genuinely dependable?
Exactly. That's not extremism, that's adulthood.
And maybe Britain needs a bit more adulthood in this conversation.
Desperately. Because too much of this debate has been reduced to childish binaries.
Such as?
Such as, if you question whether the grid is resilient enough, you must be against renewables.
Which is nonsense.
Or, if you want dependable backup, you must want some sort of industrial apocalypse.
Again, nonsense.
Or, if you ask whether ministers have been too complacent, you must be talking Britain down.
That one really gets on my nerves.
Mine too, because pointing out risk is not sabotage. It's the first step in avoiding disaster.
Exactly. Fire alarms are not anti-house.
Very good.
Thanks.
And perhaps that's the best way to understand this whole issue. Catherine Porter is not saying Britain is definitely finished. She's saying Britain is taking risks that may be larger than the public has been encouraged to understand.
And that should concern everyone.
Because once you've got a fragile system, you don't always get a neat warning label. Sometimes you only discover how fragile it is when it fails.
That's the nightmare.
It is. And if this country ends up with blackouts or rationing or repeated emergency pleas to households, people will quite rightly ask, how on earth did we get here?
And the answer may well be because too many people were afraid to challenge a fashionable consensus.
That is often how policy disasters happen.
Quietly at first.
Then suddenly,
And by then, of course, everyone claims they saw it coming.
naturally.
Naturally.
So let's boil it down. Is there guaranteed to be a nationwide blackout tomorrow?
No.
Is it reckless to pretend the risk conversation is over?
Yes.
Is Britain building an energy system that may be cleaner on paper but shakier in practice?
That is the question people should be asking, loudly.
Because in the end, energy policy is not about looking good at a podium.
It's about whether the country works.
And if the country cannot keep the lights on,
Then all the slogans in the world are worthless.
that's it.
That's it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with anyone who thinks Britain's energy debate has become all spin and no honesty.
And let us know in the comments. Are Catherine Porter's warnings a necessary wake-up call, or do you think the risk is being overstated?
Thanks for listening, and we look forward to next time.